So one of the central themes in this book is about talking about how companies need to put customers at the center of their business. And at one level, this is almost like a cliche or a platitude, because no company will tell you today that I don't want to be customer centric, or what I call inside out versus outside in. And in that regard, I think I've tried very hard to clarify in this book what exactly does it mean. I think is being customer centric or outside in is really about a mindset shift. It's about really redefining how you define who you are. So I think most companies define themselves around their purpose, around I produce X product or service, and my job is to go out and make sure I sell it. As opposed to saying, my definition of who I am is I want to own this problem space. I want to solve these problems for these customers, and then my job is to figure out how can I best do those. So my identification is more with a set of customers and a set of issues they're dealing with, as opposed to with here's my product or my service or this is what I produce. And I think that kind of shift is where this all starts. That is, of course, facilitated if you start with a position of curiosity and humility, where you're curious to know who are my customers, what is really going on in their lives, and asking questions that are beyond narrow product-centric questions. Many companies I've gone to claim to be customer-centric, but when I say, well, what makes you customer-centric? And they say, well, I ask my customers, do you like my product? What do you like about it? What don't you like about it? How can I make it better for you? And I said, that's not customer-centric. That's looking at the customer through the lens of your product. And one of the examples I use in the book is bag salad. You know, companies never would get to bag salad if they ask questions like, do you like my lettuce? And there are other companies I've looked at, for instance, like Target. For Target, the realization was that we have to be thinking very clearly about what's happening in the life of my customer. So if you look at Target in the present recession and how they've actually tackled it, one of the realization was that customers distinguish between needs and wants. And when economic times are tougher, customers focus on needs more than wants. And in that context, they said, maybe we need to shift our focus to needs more than wants. And that's where you saw a shift towards offering food in the store, much more focus on grocery and food, drives traffic into the store. So you start to see companies like Target that become much more attuned with who their customers are and what they want to do and what their objectives are in trying to do that. In the book, I've documented 4 levels of customer centricity. And I think I try to work the reader through what these levels are, that you start at level 1, which is what I call inside out, where you're thinking inside and then working out. And you end up with what I would call outside in, where you're starting out and then working your way back inwards. In the end, my hope is that when you reach that 4th level, you become agnostic to what you produce and don't produce. One of the examples, for instance, I've used is a company in India. It's the largest mobile operator in India called Bharti Airtel. And Bharti is really interesting because several years ago, they first decided to outsource their IT systems. They said, you know what, we don't want to run IT ourselves. IBM, you come run it for us. At the same time, they also decided they don't want to maintain and manage their cell towers. So they got a consortium of companies to manage the cell towers for them. A couple of years ago, more recently, what they've done is they said, we don't want to own our cell towers. Let's make a joint venture with 2 of our competitors and let that company own all the cell towers. So now you have a mobile operator that does not own its own cell towers, does not maintain its cell towers, does not manage its own IT systems, and you say, what do they do? Right? So they have defined their business very much around this idea that I want to own a problem space and a customer, and I'll let somebody else take care of how that actually gets done. So of course I have to gatekeep that, and I'm responsible. So as I look at companies that are trying to become customer centric, it's really about aligning yourself in a fundamental way around a set of customer problems, around a set of customers, and trying to, in a substantial way, address those issues.